souls tonight. We are losing this fight. Oh, help our souls tonight. Is no one on our side who's gonna help our souls tonight. No one here to help.
All right, so I'm here today with Justin Fung. Justin, thanks for being here with us today. So if anyone who doesn't know you, I'll kind of let you give your own intro. Maybe tell people who you are.
Sure, yeah, so I'm a Chinese Canadian, been born and raised in Vancouver. I work in the tech industry and I'm part of a group called HALT, Housing Action for Local Taxpayers.
Okay.
We're representing
housing action for local taxpayers.
I think that's what the t-shirt says, Housing Action for Local Taxpayers, yes.
Okay, so what is that like, what kind of housing action you want to see? Like, what's the housing action?
Well, ultimately, we want to see that basically for people who are living here, or working here, making a living here, contributing through communities here, contributing to their income taxes to the tax base in Canada and Vancouver, that they have an affordable home. Okay. Right. It's pretty simple, right? Like that seems like a basic thing that we should be able to have is an affordable home.
Do you own a place here in Vancouver? Or?
I do. I own a condo. I live with my, I live there with my wife and a young daughter. Okay. And so yeah, certainly we are homeowners. There's other members of HALT who are also homeowners. We also have renters as part of our group. But yeah, I mean, it really runs the gamut. We don't just represent homeowners and we don't just represent renters. These are both groups are impacted by housing affordability today.
Just curious, when did you buy?
2010.
Okay, 2010. Yeah. Okay. Because like obviously, again, the counter argument is like intervention and all this stuff is going to affect people's equity in their homes, and obviously, like I'm sure now that you've bought in 2010, you've obviously built up quite a substantial amount of equity in your condo in Fairview, which has gone up a lot. So yeah, I mean, like, when you say like housing action for local taxpayers, do you ever concern that maybe you will affect equity, or is that something that you don't care about, or like what's your take on that?
Ultimately, my home is my condo is a home. I live in it. I've chosen to take on a mortgage because that I need to house my family, right? And that's what really comes out of it. I look at it from the flip side, and I think about if I were to buy the same home today, I would have trouble probably paying for that place. I probably might not get a mortgage. So when I kind of have empathy for sort of a younger generation, even a few years younger, increasingly there's more and more challenges. And I'm someone that was priced out of a house, for example. And certainly that was something that I looked into earlier, and certainly that is out of reach at this point. But yeah, these are things that I worry about, and that the HALT team worries about, is really that on an ongoing basis we are pricing people out of the city, particularly the younger generation or young professionals. But it's happening across the board. It certainly isn't just a millennial issue. We're seeing, we've had stories shared with senior citizens renting in the West End who've rented there for 30 years, getting rent-evicted, not being able to find a new place to rent, and not be able to find a home. I mean, these are really trying times. These are people, with students. I don't know if you've seen the story in the Globe and Mail recently. Students in SFU who again getting evicted from their homes in the middle of the school year, not having a place to live. 8 students living in a 2-bedroom condo, all sharing rent. Some of them sleeping on campus. And it's a 20. These areas are open 24/7. Anybody can walk in. So there's a personal safety risk for some of these kids, right? And you think about university and like sort of what that experience should be, and those are just not things that a student should have to worry about. As they're trying to to enjoy the university life.
I think that's. Obviously, it's so lucrative for like a homeowner to watch like rents go up and up, and just obviously have a tenant. They've been in there for a couple of years, like they really want to maximize their profit. So maybe they rent evict people, right? So obviously that's a huge issue. But the counter argument is like, okay, people renting. You have a lot of renters in your group. Sure. But people will say the counter argument is that 2%. I think it was a stat is like Vancouver vacancy rates have never been over 2%. Right. And they say like a healthy vacancy rent is between 3 to 5%. What do we do? I think we're down now to 0.6
or something like that.
So like, I mean, what do you guys want to see for renters? Like, do you guys have like anything that you're kind of pushing for? Or?
Definitely, one of the concerns we see is Airbnb coming into play. Certainly, a lot of people are finding, it's improving cap rates for homeowners when they rent out via Airbnb, right? As opposed to having sort of a long-term tenant in there. So that's certainly playing a part in terms of reducing rental supply. I think just sort of the price, as prices of homes have gone up, that's forced people who are holding these as investments or maybe renting them out to have to bring their rents up in order for it to make financial sense.
Yeah.
So I think definitely renters are getting squeezed there. So the big things there, I think, like you said, 3 to 5% sort of that healthy rate. We need to see a lot more rental supply come online. I think that's got to be, how we get there. I don't know. I'm certainly not a city planner. But certainly we do need to see that supply start to free up a little bit.
With that being said, do you see like a peaceful way for Vancouver to coexist with Airbnb? Like, is there anything, I mean, like you said, this isn't maybe like, your day job isn't to be a city planner, but obviously, is there any like models that you look at or things that you would like to see done with Airbnb because obviously everybody uses Airbnb, like I use it, I love it.
Sure.
And so I see like the pros and the cons, but
Yeah,
I think ultimately like there has to be some kind of peaceful middle where we can have Airbnbs here for people that visit. But is it year round? Is it, do we charge a tax? Like,
I mean, I think we definitely, if you look at the B&B side of what Airbnb is, it's a bed and breakfast, right? And so certainly we do have bed and breakfasts in the city that are regulated, that they have a certificate to operate as a business, and there's regulations over that. So certainly to see that being put in place and to be enforced, and again, if people are taking rental supply off the market in order to flip it over to be an Airbnb, to be a B&B, that's that it's appropriately zoned, that they are following those rules, and it really, I think the city has a role to play in enforcing some of that. So yeah, I mean, we definitely need to put the right incentives in place. It certainly, it's a different way to travel. It's a different way to see the world, and but we just need to put the right incentives in place so that we are protecting renters and we're protecting citizens of the city.
Yeah, exactly. So you talk a little bit about like the city. Have you guys, has your group had any conversations with like the mayor or any kind of city planners, councils, like?
We'll continue to get sort of more involved in terms of reaching out to various politicians and party leaders and whatnot. So absolutely, those are things that are going, ongoing. We've only really been around for the last few months. So it's sort of caught us by surprise a little bit how big how big sort of HALT has been as a bit of a revolution. And
I think you're taking on a pretty big role here, maybe like that. I guess kind of comes a little bit unexpected, right? Like, I mean, people need to like rise up, but obviously you guys have just blown up over the last couple months and really just taken on this.
Yeah, and I think the reality is we represent citizens' voices. Like that's our view. Our view is that if you look in the media, if you look at where all the stories have been, they've really been sort of pushed. There's certain agendas, people that have been pushing an agenda that are showing up in the news constantly, and it was sort of and not really showing up on our politicians' radars, right? So the voices of citizens weren't necessarily being heard, and so for us, we really just wanted to be able to kind of amplify all those voices and say, hey, you got to listen to us. Our governments have to be accountable to us. Our governments have to be looking out for the citizens, the local taxpayers, the voters who are truly struggling here, that this is, that they have to take some action.
Totally, and I think it's like voices like yours. I think now, like, we're in like the social media world where everyone's reading headlines and stuff. I think a lot of like your guys' message and many other people have now been starting to get picked up by the media, which then gets read by the public. And now it really is like pushing change, because I mean, you look at, obviously the Liberals basically implemented these, like the foreign tax.
That's correct.
Just because there was so much public outcry, they looked at the polling, and the polling said, we're not satisfied. So I think the public is finally starting to have like a voice, and obviously like you guys are really pushing that.
Yeah, and I mean that foreign owner tax certainly is a great first step. It certainly has its flaws, and there's certainly challenges around that. But there's still a long way to go. This is a complex issue where we have to have a multifaceted solution.
What's your background? So you're born here.
I'm born here.
And you're from?
My parents are from Hong Kong, so they were immigrants. They came here as immigrants. They've lived here, paid their taxes here for worked and lived here. I'm certainly not anti-immigration. I think we believe that immigration is one of the things that has made Canada a great country.
Well, I mean, it drives the economy here, right?
It drives the economy. It brings diverse perspectives. It makes us strong as a nation, and it makes us tolerant as a nation. That being said, if you look at some of the immigration policy that has been in place, immigrant investor programs that Ian Young, who you've had on, has spoken about at length.
Quebec program there,
the Quebec program, which really needs to be shut down. A number of the other immigrant investor programs.
It's funny because Ian has like a Chinese ethnic background, and then you as well, and so you get people like such as yourselves speaking out, and people go, but then you have the other people that are saying, oh, this is racist, but then it's kind of refreshing to have you kind of talk out and say, no, this isn't. Like, so would you say, like, are we avoiding issues when the race guard gets pushed out? Like, what's your take on that? Because I know that there was an article that came out that you were featured in. I think it was in the Georgia Straits.
Yeah, we did write a letter.
Yeah.
So I think racism, it does exist. We can't ignore that fact. It is there. It's here. It's racially charged. It's a topic that's very easily racially charged. And it is there, and we got to call it out when it happens, and really, say, hey, this is not appropriate when someone is saying something truly racist. But I think there are a lot of people who do understand the matter, that it is truly about sort of the global wealth capital flow, that this money is coming in from offshore, that is distorting our real estate market. And yes, primarily most of it's coming from China. And the data supports that now. We know this. The data that Mike Young has published says that 90-some-odd% of this is coming. The 90-some-odd% of the purchases now that are foreign are coming from China. So there's no surprise that we can talk about that now. But I do think there's a little fear that you might misstep, that you might say the wrong thing. It's amazing that it has been able to shut down the debate and shut down the conversation for so long. So part of the reason I wrote that letter was because I felt, it's been used too many times, and we need to move beyond this. And yes, we will talk about racism, and I will not tolerate it. Anytime I hear it, I'm going to call it out. But at the same time, I'm also going to call out if a moneyed interest is going to play that card to try to shut down a real conversation. I will also call that out.
What's the sentiment in the Chinese community, especially since the announcement of the 15% foreign buyers tax?
I can't really speak to that, to be honest. I think it's a class issue more than anything else. I think part of it is there is foreign wealth. I think that's the big thing. So certainly from a class perspective, from a working class Chinese Canadian perspective, I think there's been a lot of support for it.
Okay, interesting. I kind of want to jump back into HALT, obviously, and talk a little bit further. I think some people are kind of curious as to maybe how you got started. I think we've already touched on who's in it.
That's right.
So you have owners and renters and that sort of thing. How can people kind of join? Can people join?
We're always looking for more people.
Do I get a shirt?
Absolutely. No, we've got a shirt for you. So I didn't have one on me today, but we have a shirt for you today. No, we'll definitely get one to you. Yes. So we're out every Friday. On sunny sort of summer days, we're out at various transit stops. Our Facebook page is sort of the best spot to find out what's going on, the latest and greatest. We're putting all the events there in the calendar.
Okay. So someone goes to Facebook, they go to
HALT Vancouver. Okay. So search for HALT Vancouver, and it will come up. You got lots of followers there. That's sort of our most active space. We're also on Twitter. HALT_YBR is our Twitter account. Both places we'll be announcing where we are, what we're doing, and really the first step is hey, come out, meet with us, chat with us. Tell us how you want to get involved. Tell us what you're bringing to the table. Why are you passionate about this? And we're really looking for people. As we grow out, we've got lots of things we've got to do, right? So we've got to get kind of fundraising done. We've got to get more messaging out there. We've got various social media platforms. We just put a Reddit post out there for the first time. And
how did that go? Did you get a lot of hate back? Online?
I don't know yet.
Online trolls.
Yeah, they went out today. So we got a guy now he said, hey, I'm really active on Reddit. I'd love to be your guys' Reddit presence. We talked,
nice.
And so he's he's doing that, and so a lot more of that. Just the logistics is, this is a huge project. Planning a rally. Certainly, I've never planned a rally before. I've planned projects, in my work.
What kind of rally and where is it?
Yeah, so September 17th, so a month from now, we'll be out in front of the art gallery in the afternoon. We've got a great speaker lineup. We've already got Christine Duhame's coming, confirmed. We've got several other people. We got folks, Dr. Darren Johnson. I'm saying that right? Yeah.
Who's that?
He's the doctor we featured. He was in Chilliwack. His story, he had shared. He had written a letter to his MP, his MLAs, and they've now responded after we published it on our HALT page. Certainly, around expectations. Hey, what should you do as a doctor? Suck it up, accept less. And here's a guy that the world's. I have a world of respect for doctors. You think about how much time and effort they put in. It is, it's a labor of love to be a doctor. You really got to want to help people, and we put them on a pedestal. And for him to be told, you know what, maybe you don't deserve a house. That's pretty shameful.
Yeah.
So certainly he'll be out. He'll be talking a little bit as well. And again, for him, there's a level of empathy too, right? Like, doctors are highly paid. What about the nurses? What about the paramedics? What about the everybody else that makes the city makes the city tick? How do they make it?
I totally hear where you're coming from, right? Because obviously, you can't have an economy built on. It can't be like a playground for the rich, and there's people that are working here. The incomes don't support the housing.
That's right.
Obviously the counter argument is, well, they need to move further away, but the jobs here are in the city.
That's right.
The commutes are going to be longer, that sort of thing.
That's right.
I don't agree that everyone should necessarily be able to, afford to buy a place. I think certainly, but even we're getting to the problem now where renters are getting squeezed out, and even people that can't afford to rent.
Yep.
So I think that's becoming more of an issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really, people just need to have a fair shake. Right? They want a fair opportunity. As I mentioned, Christine's coming to talk. Christine Duhame is a lawyer who's been actively involved in a lot of the money laundering issues that have been occurring throughout the city. Again, we talk about fairness and sort of this rampant money laundering that is occurring. Certainly we're seeing stories there. Sam Cooper's been great in terms of sort of exposing a lot of that. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. According to everything that I've heard. And so I'm really looking forward to Christine speaking and telling us a little bit more, how deep that rabbit hole goes.
To have that inside scoop, right?
That's right. And again, we should be upset. We should be angry. We are honest, hardworking citizens of this city. And again, if that's one of the reasons that people are getting pushed out or being have to drive an hour and a half each way to come and go to work and take time away from their kids, I think that's that's pretty tragic.
Time is money, and it's interesting because people always say, okay, well, Vancouver is not expensive as New York or San Francisco, but you look at the wages and the income that's earned there, it's incredible. Vancouver really hasn't even kept, I don't even think their wages have kept pace with inflation, let alone a 35% rise in home prices over the last year.
And we're still actually, in terms of median incomes, we're one of the lowest in Canada, right? So, compared to Calgary, where people are earning a lot more, even a lot of the smaller cities in Vancouver, the median wages are much higher.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, I'm going to get towards wrapping up. I just want to ask you a couple of final questions, obviously. What do you think is kind of next for HALT? What would you guys want to see implemented? Is there any thing out of the gates? Maybe if you could put your finger on one thing, or
well, we did publish sort of a 6-point summary of things that we're looking for, right? So we're looking for, certainly the Tom Davidoff, who you also had on, his housing affordability fund proposal, something that ties a property tax surcharge on top of. On top of what's already been done.
Yeah, which gets paid obviously when people pay their taxes, and it doesn't exempts retirees and that sort of thing.
That's right. But basically, if you're going to leave a home empty, or you bought a home that you should not be able to afford on your local income, we should be taxing that, and we should be able to use that money towards building more affordable housing or having more solutions there. It also starts to give us sort of a way of tracking that all back, right? So if we should be asking ourselves hey, maybe the CRA should be jumping in and getting involved.
I think was there talks of a task force.
Certainly, but that would give us the data. That in itself is a bit of a closed loop. So certainly that Quebec Immigrant Investor Program, that's something we really need to see kind of tied up and dealt with. We do need to see sort of more. I do supply is part of the solution, but until we've sort of tackled this problem of money coming in from abroad. We do need to tackle that though, and I think do it in a way that doesn't fundamentally change the what makes the city great, right? So I think having the right supply in place, which also includes, as I mentioned before, Airbnb. Sorry, I have all this on the Facebook page. Anyway, we're trying to wrap up. So do check it out. I mean, that's really the place for it.
Okay.
But you know, we do have a number of ideas that we have. But yeah, I mean, we got to think about speculation. We got to figure out how do we take the speculation out. We've been working with Generation Squeeze as well. So we have signed on to their Homes First policy principle. We believe that homes are for, you know, that housing is for people's homes first, living in first, and investments a sort of distant second. So really, those are sort of the main things that are really driving us today.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point. So obviously, if anyone wants to check that out further, so go to the Facebook page, which is HALT Vancouver.
HALT Vancouver.
HALT Vancouver, and then Twitter is at HALT Vancouver.
_YVR.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
HALT
_YVR.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then yourself, Justin Fung on Twitter.
That's right, JHW Fung on Twitter. That's me. And yeah. Oh, sorry. One other thing. Big money in corporate in politics. We need to get that out.
Okay.
We're one of the few places in Canada.
Funding the Liberal government.
Funding any government for that matter. You know, I think you know, if we want the governments to bend to the will of the citizens and not for you know, other interest groups,
Well, I mean, it's kind of counterproductive.
We need to take that money out. So that's certainly been one of the big pushes. So just
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Justin.
Thanks for having
being
me
on the show. Thanks for taking your time out of your day, and we'll get your message out. So check out HALT Vancouver, and you guys have an upcoming thing at the Art Gallery September 17th.
That's right, September 17th. So be there. We want to see lots of people out. We want to make sure that that crowd is representative of you know, the overall sentiment within the city.
Yeah, awesome. I think I'm supposed to be there too. So.
Good stuff, Steve.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Awesome.
Great.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Cheers.